here from Carl Jung.
Oh, Jung. How much of his stuff and Freud's stuff has been totally discounted?
Freud more than Jung, I think. There's some
Okay.
Jungian stuff that is still, I think, relatively popular.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But it's not all like do a
they're
line
not
and I want to
textbooks
sleep with my
anymore. Let's put it
parents.
that way.
Yeah.
My quote's one that you're probably familiar with, which is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate."
Oh my God.
There's
There's
a
so
heady
much
one.
there's so much to unpack here. Especially I think in modern times
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of business literature, and self-improvement literature. There's this idea of manifestation, which is what we did our first. Was that our first one? Or my
Early,
first quote?
if not first, early.
And I think that there's a lot of one-to-ones there about what's really driving us, what's going on in the background programming of our brain.
Mm.
And, as you get older, and I'm kind of almost 20 years older than you, right?
Yeah. Not quite 18 or something. Yeah, close enough. You could round up.
20. What are you talking about? 18. Oh,
I'm trying to help you out here, buddy. What do you want? But you're right. It has this. There are these stories that we tell about ourselves, and tell ourselves about ourselves, and these presuppositions that we have, and these biases that we have about the way we view the world, that are invisible to us, unconscious to us, and they color every decision we make. And that's why a lot of people find, people who think that things come easily to them or seem to come easily to them, or conversely, people who think that they got a bad beat or that they're consistently unlucky. Sure, there's elements of random chance, things like that in your life. But I think a lot of that is you pushing yourself subconsciously into decisions, into situations that you don't necessarily have to. And like Jung says, calling it fate.
I also, well, part of what you've said is perspective too, which I think is a little bit different than fate. Where people can have similar experiences, and one could say, God, I'm so unlucky. I never catch a break. And the other person could be like, I'm the luckiest person in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've talked before how, like, on a lot of objective metrics, your life would be measured as a relatively lucky one, but you would consider yourself to be extremely blessed.
And I think, most people who I talk to about my life agree.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're so lucky. I'm like, dude, I know. I don't know why. I spend a lot of time in my meditations being grateful for whatever lucky star or karma I incurred in a past life, or for whatever reason, the universe or God or whatever you want has smiled upon me many times. It continues to smile upon me. And I'm eternally grateful for that. Where I find the Jung quote to be particularly appropriate, and this is where I brought my age in, is as I look back on my life, middle school, high school, my young adulthood, my 30s, I see so many patterns, so many patterns in how I live my life, what I was thinking, the problems that I would solve. I was so, I was sticking my finger in the side of the boat, and then the same problem would pop up somewhere else, and I'd move, and the leak would continue, and, only got 10 fingers.
Well, the other thing there is, like, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? That's like, so if you're encountering the same stimuli over and over throughout your life, why would you respond differently to them, to be honest, time after time, unless you take time to try and tease that out and pull, okay, why did I act like that? What about me made me react like that? Why, what could I do differently next time?
And I think that the Jungian side of that might be the other side. If all you think you have is a hammer, all you will ever do is hammer things. So it's not even like you have problems that will approach you. And I don't mean to say that the subconscious directs the problems to us, because there's no question you and I, or I guess maybe we're similar, maybe Nikki and I, as different as we are, have faced some of the similar problems, some very different ones.
Right. But some parts of the human condition are ubiquitous and some are unique. Sure.
Exactly. Where I think Jung is very, very interesting in this is that, and I made this line of perspective and stuff earlier, but it all informs the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's so funny that this is your quote. I was not doom scrolling. There's a few it's still doom scrolling.
It's a matter of perspective.
Motivational speakers and thinkers on TikTok that I follow. And I saw this one and I immediately followed him because it was so interesting. And he says, you're not a body with a soul. You're a soul with a body. Think of it like this. Your soul is in this. How modern is this? How post-Matrix is this? Your soul is playing a VR game.
Yeah, you are the pilot. Yeah.
Are the codes for the game. And when we start telling ourselves like, man, nothing ever good happens to me. I'm so unlucky. And then it becomes like, I just deserve this. We get used to, and those things start happening to us. Bad things start happening to us. And we starts coloring how we feel about things, where we think about things, and how we perceive them. And that starts to derive the next experience, not derive, but derive and drive.
I've seen it with people in my life who all like recommend an opportunity, who'd be like, oh, you should try this, you should go for this. And they'll go, oh, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. Or I don't know if I'll be able to, apply for that job or finish that project or read that book or whatever, or, be able to deadlift that amount. And they're defeating themselves before they even start. Yep. There's no like, I'll get halfway through and I'll figure it out. And if I get halfway through and I fail, I got halfway through. You know what I mean? That approach doesn't occur to some people. And that starts to get you into the self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm not good at these things, therefore I never try, therefore I shouldn't try them, therefore I never try them, therefore I never get better at them.
And then drawing back, I think, to the Jung quote, which I think is really interesting, because that is exactly the behavior that happens, right? But then we see, and this is a lesson that I really, really learned from, John, our friend, your old boss, microboss, is you gotta be willing to take chances. You take the good ones. Sometimes you lose. And I've talked to you about this. We took a lot of chances early on. I like to call it Shadowmoor block and Lorwyn block. And they did not pay off. And there were a lot of months, not weeks, months, y'all, where we weren't cashing paychecks. Cash flow was a problem. We went all in at the wrong time. Then Zendikar came out. God bless Zendikar, and everything changed. These are all Magic references that I'm talking about because we were in the Magic business.
I would wager the vast majority of today's Magic players have no idea what you're talking about for what it's worth.
Yes, that's true. These were just business. We went all in at different times in the business, and we chose the wrong time, but we kept pushing, and then blessedly the tide turned, and we ended up being quite successful. My point is, twice I've gone all in on this business that I'm in now, and the first time it did not work out. I got laid off. I had no job. I had a lot of bills to pay. It was a very stressful time. Right now, it's working out just fine, but it didn't temper my desire to do it because I saw the success in John's life. Now I want to go back to what you were talking about. I saw the success in John's life, the struggle as well, but I realized that was the key to success. Now you get the person who's like, I'm not going to take that chance. And I'm not going to do that. And then they don't achieve those things. But then what do they see? They look over and they go, look at Mashi and John, man. Those guys are so lucky. They keep doing this stuff and it just works out. How do they do it? They're so lucky. They're so blessed.
There is some survivorship bias there, to be fair. Like there is a little bit of that. And also people who are negative about themselves and negative about opportunities will also fixate on failures for reasons to not do those things. But if we pull it back from like macro opportunities to micro, like day-to-day life stuff a little bit, you're a guy who does mindfulness and meditation. The whole purpose of that is to try and tone down your conscious brain a little bit, to let your subconscious seep through a little bit, right? It's to center yourself and stop yourself from focusing on one thing to the next so that you can be in your body a little bit more. And that is kind of appealing to making the subconscious conscious.
I think that's kind of phase one, right? Finding that quiet mind. Phase two, whether you believe it or not, is trying to rewire that subconscious to turn it into a tool, to turn it into something you're actively engaging with, so that instead of this dialogue of I'm so unlucky, nothing good ever happens to me, you start, I'm abundant and I attract abundance. I'm great and I attract greatness. I am loved and lovable and I attract love. And you start trying to rewire yourself. These are affirmations. Obviously, I know we've spoken about that in prior episodes.
We talk about affirmations and manifesting, right? I think there's this negative perception around those things that you are somehow like magically summoning the cosmos to do your bidding. And I'm sure there are some people who believe that. But in reality, what you're trying to do, I think most of the time, and what I think there is actual evidence for, is trying to reframe the way you approach situations that you encounter throughout your life so that you have different novel approaches and solutions in that before would have been invisible to you, before would have been hidden in the toolbox when you thought you only had a hammer. And a lot of that is honestly like the thing we talked about here, where you're like, screw it, I am going to try it. And if I fail, that's okay, right? Whereas you might have never tried those things before. And even if they're only 10%, 20%, 30% chances, you're going to hit some of them and you'll hit some wins that you never would have hit before. And that's what I think is the real product of, these affirmations and meditation and manifesting. It's not about summoning the gods to do your bidding and try and retread the strings of fate. It's much more about just changing your perspective so you're more receptive to success.
Yeah. I think that The important thing with manifestation, with affirmations, if the idea of a universe of love that wants to give to you isn't appealing, don't go with that. If the idea of a, beneficial and magnanimous God type figure doesn't appeal to you, don't go with that. This is all about trying to find what's going to help drive you and appeal to you. I will say, whether it's universal love, whether it's, you're trying to rewire your own brain in your own way, whether it's God, I will reference God here. With manifestation, with affirmations, it isn't just form over substance. I often say this with friends and colleagues who are like, yeah, I've really been focusing on it. I'm like, but you haven't done anything. And one of the things I love is God helps those who help themselves. You have to move the ball too. You can't just magically put the ball into play, because as you say, it's not creating something out of nothing. It's not abracadabra. It is driving your perception of experiences. Was this a catastrophic, and you and I were involved in a very difficult business merger, a very difficult business for a long time. It was very uncomfortable. And I dare say it was part of why we don't work together anymore. And which is one of mine, I know John's great regrets. But when I come away from it as a win, and it has been a win at the end of the tunnel, now I get the great luxury of looking back and saying, what did I learn? Why was it so bad? And for me, it's a masterclass in what signs and gut feel and things did I ignore, and what did I not give voice to. So that's the way to look at it, I think, is, and this is very, very trite, but every bad situation or mistake, it's an opportunity. But how is your subconscious going to take it? Oh, that sucked. Screw so-and-so, it was all them, blah, 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 blah. That's not a great dialogue, but it's a very common dialogue.
Yeah, it's a comfortable dialogue.
Right. So without going to this idea of rewiring or trying to talk to your brain or say, hey, let's reframe how we're going to remember that experience or reframe our thought process for future experiences. I think all Jung is saying is, hey, dude, dudette, and other, know that dialogue is happening. What is the story your brain is telling itself that is coloring how you feel about it, what you're experiencing, how you recall those things? Because your brain is telling you a story.
Right. Acknowledging it is acknowledging is the first step. Trying to change it is way further down the line. Understanding that there are parts of you that are outside of your purview, outside of your vision, outside of your control, and that they affect how you interact with the world is the first step. And look, yes, that opens the door down the line to trying to change those things and trying to affect them. But just understanding that there's parts of you that are, in your VR spaceship analogy, in the engine room, invisible to you, is important.
Yeah. And knowing the other thing that I said, maybe the intermediate step is those things are all meant for self-preservation. There's a reason your brain is telling you that story. So know what you're trying to protect against. And definitely start turning your head towards that, because once you see it, you'll know it. And you'll know that this is why I'm telling myself this story. I'm great at I'll share with you and everybody. I'm great at business confrontation. It's been a real struggle for me in my personal life to be confrontational. And that's just part of me that I've got to push and always ask myself in a given confrontation. I don't mean confrontation like, hey, why were you making out with that guy?
With subtler stuff, yeah.
Subtler stuff like, oh, I don't know. What do you want for dinner? It's like, God, I kind of want pasta. Well, let's get sushi. It's like, oh, I guess I don't care. We'll get sushi. But you get enough of those, I guess I don't care. So guess what? You freaking care.
A lot of sushi.
Right.
But you're right. Those, and we can wrap up on this, that those ghosts are much larger in your peripheral vision. And it's only when you can bring them into focus that you can start to see any path forward to dealing with them. And look, I don't think there's anybody in my life who has less use for this advice than you do. But Mashi, go into your life and try make your subconscious more conscious, and hopefully you won't have to call it fate anymore.
Oh, I love it. I love ascribing things to fate too, by the way. No fate but what we make. What is that? Terminator 2? No fate but what we make. There we go. We'll do that next time. We summed it up. Dennis, go out there, make the unseen seen, embrace it, guide it, use it as the tool that it is. And just know, for everybody listening to this, I think that there's wonderful stories that we can all tell ourselves and that we should be telling ourselves. And start telling yourself that story. Trust me, it'll work out for you.
All right. Have a good morning.
Have a great evening, Dennis.